Hi, this is Alan Tribble, and this is the next drop in a series of video clips on the topic Business Management for Scientists and Engineers. Today's post is on the topic Cost Accounting and focuses on how to set prices to ensure profitability. If you're a scientist or engineer, you appreciate that there's a distinction between the various fields of science and engineering. There's a difference between electrical and mechanical engineering, for example. Those same differences exist in other fields, such as the world of accounting. Financial accounting focuses on understanding profit and loss. Cost accounting focuses on understanding costs so that you can implement cost control or cost reduction measures. Cost accounting is intended primarily to be used internal to the company, whereas financial accounting results are often reported externally. In my last post, I reviewed the chart below that lists the various types of expenses or costs that might need to be accounted for. We might not need a lot of rigor to sell a low-tech commercial product like a cup of coffee, but if we want to sell high-tech, complex products, we need to put more rigor into understanding our true cost. Let's take a look at a very different example. Let's assume we're a small engineering firm that wants to bid on a proposal to the U.S. government to develop and deliver new prototypes in response to their request for proposal. The direct cost would include all of the costs directly associated with developing and delivering those prototypes. For example, labor, materials, travel, even packaging and shipping. But you will also have other indirect costs, such as rent on the building, labor costs for supervisors or management, even training costs for new hires you might need to execute the statement of work. Those costs are all legitimate costs of doing business. As long as they are reasonable, allowable, and allocable, they may be added to U.S. government contracts. This is all buried in the U.S. Federal Acquisition Regulations and overseen by the Defense Contract Audit Agency. We often accumulate all of our costs into separate cost pools so we can keep track of them separately. If we know an hourly rate for each of our direct costs, we can allocate those directly to the program. If we know what percentage our indirect costs are as a percentage of our direct costs, we could add that as a wrapper to our direct costs. Let's take a look at an example. Let's consider a simple example where we have 4 categories of individuals that we will need to execute a contract directly. Financial analysts to generate cost reports, technicians to assemble and test our products, engineers to design and develop our products, and a program manager to monitor and control the program. Everybody will get a salary and some benefits, so we can estimate the total cost of the salary and benefits for all of the financial analysts, then all of the technicians, and so on. But we also have other costs that we need to account for. The cost of executive leadership, who is maintaining the entire operation, IT support, which may be needed to deploy updates to our computing software and fix it when it breaks. Also, human resources, to hire and train new employees. There are probably many others, but this is enough detail for this discussion. All of these people would need an office to work out of, a desk to sit at, a personal computer to work with, and so on. So we can allocate those costs across each of the labor categories based on the number of people in each category, the size and space of offices, and so on. Some labor categories, like technicians or engineers, may need to work out of a dedicated lab space with other equipment that may have other costs. We could allocate those unique costs to those labor categories as shown. We keep doing that until we have accounted for all of our costs. Once complete, we know the total cost of all of the financial analysts, all of the technicians, and so on. This tells us what our total direct costs and total indirect costs would be. Remember that direct costs are those that we can charge directly to a contract. Indirect costs have to be recovered in a different way. For each direct cost labor category, we could calculate an hourly rate. We take the total cost of all the financial analysts for the year, divide by the number of hours we expect all of the financial analysts to charge to all of our contracts, and we're left with an hourly rate. We can do the same thing for all the other labor categories. We can't bill indirect costs that way, so we need a different approach there. We could calculate the ratio of the total indirect costs to the total direct costs and see what that percentage is. In this example, and the example that follows, we'll make up some numbers. Let's assume that the financial analysts cost $75 an hour, technicians cost $100 an hour, and so on. Similarly, we'll assume that the ratio of the total indirect costs to the total direct costs are 33%. This simple example has looked at labor only. On most contracts, there are other direct costs such as materials, travel, subcontractors, and other costs that we could directly charge to the program. We could calculate a separate G&A wrap for each of those costs, or we may decide to use a single G&A wrap for everything. Either method is appropriate depending on the accounting methodology you use. We haven't yet looked at differences like fixed price or cost plus contract types, and we'll take a look at that later in the course. In the meantime, if you'd like any more information, please feel free to take your favorite cost accountant to lunch and ask them how it works in your organization. If you'd like any more information on any of the topics we've discussed so far, please investigate the three options shown above. First, you could buy the book. Both electronic and hard copies are available, and you can order those from your favorite bookstore or most of the major online retailers. Second, you can take the 2-day professional development class. If you'd like more information on that, please drop me an email at the address shown. Finally, you could subscribe to our new YouTube channel, BM4SE. Please tune in and look for future posts in the very near future. Thank you.